This episode is hosted by Kenneth Bonner, Reggie Smith, and Jacqueline Wells. Well, welcome to the Movie Talk Podcast. This is Kenneth Bonner,
Reggie Smith,
and Jackie Wells.
Today's show, we want to focus on the canceled Netflix situation. It's basically started from a show called Cuties. And what started the whole cancel Netflix culture is many people are outraged by a clip they saw where you had 11-year-old girls dancing on stage in an explicit manner. Personally, I didn't watch the show. I saw the clip and I was a little disgusted just based on seeing the clip. And so I mentioned it to Jackie and Reggie about it. They actually watched the show, so I'm guilty. I saw the clip and I automatically went into the mode of, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. I can't believe Netflix is, posting something like this. I actually fell victim to the norm. But they watched that whole show, and I think they could shed a little bit more insight on what happened on the show so that people can get a better perspective if they haven't watched it. So I'll go ahead and open up to you guys and just ask, what are your thoughts based on, the things you're hearing on social media and from watching the actual show?
Miss Wells.
Okay, of course. I'll go ahead and get started. So just like you can, I too was kind of flabbergasted when I saw the clipping that you had us watch, which depicts 11-year-old girls humping the floor, rubbing on their groins and twerking. And this is kind of the trend that's just been happening across social media because Netflix chose to use this clip, I guess, as a way to what social media is calling exploitation of children. However, at first I was on the fence about it and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. We got 11-year-old girls humping the floor, twerking. But I had to really sit down and watch the film to really understand exactly what was the film, the person who wrote the film trying to say when she wrote the film. So you really have to sit down and watch the movie Cuties instead of just pulling bits and pieces from it and be judgmental about what you're seeing. So basically, I didn't get that at all. Now, while I don't agree, let me just put that out there. I don't agree with 11-year-old girls humping the floor and twerking. However, I think that the storyline behind it raises awareness. It also has some good points about what we see in our world today. And basically, this film is centered around a little girl that's 11 years old. Her name is Amy, and she lives with her mom and her little brother. And they are from the country Senegal. And so basically, this is a little girl that's trying to explore. She ended up running into a group of young girls that is totally outside of her culture and what she's brought up being, because she's brought up being girls need to keep themselves covered, in order to be prepared for a spouse. So the way that her culture was brought up, when she sees, when she starts exploring the world and she runs into these other young girls and she starts seeing how they're dressing and how they're dancing and the type of music they're listening to, that's when she starts to inquire. And so I'm not going to get into too much meat about, I know we have a lot of show to cover, but again, she starts getting into wanting to be a part of this dance group, which is what these other girls are a part of. And so, of course, like any young, curious person, we've all been curious about some different things. She started trying to become a part of something. And so by her trying to become a part of something, she starts getting into some things that, of course, as parents, we wouldn't want our child to become involved in. So she started watching provocative videos, to try to see what it is to try to make me belong into this group of these girls that's dancing and that's dressing, of course, way older than an 11-year-old should be dressing. So I just think that there's a lot of different points in the movie that we can kind of talk to that's outside of them just showing them humping on the floor. I think that this girl was looking and searching for an out, because she was so caught up with, her family tradition. She was just trying to belong to something. And this is just the route that she ended up going to. So as far as it being an exploitation of young girls, I disagree with it. I think that's just that clip that kind of depicts that narrative. But again, you really have to watch the film to try to get a totality and understand everything that the filmmaker is trying to say.
My thing is that I was seeing on social media Everyone's canceling their Netflix subscription. They're saying all these different things. And first of all, from the people that I'm seeing saying these things, I know 100% you didn't watch this movie. When I first turned it on, my first 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I guarantee you they didn't watch the movie. Okay, first of all, it's hard to watch a movie like this when it's in another tongue, and then you're also watching the closed caption as well, and then the nature of the film. So I know there's a bunch of people that did not watch it. So as I was watching it, I'm trying to figure out, just within the first half an hour, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what is the uproar about? What is everyone going crazy about? And even towards the end of the film, I sat there like, And the reason why I sat there like, is because I cannot be hypocritical, because when you watch the movie, what you are seeing, one, you're seeing a story, a narration being told by a person who experienced this. All right. So they thought that it was, let me put it out there, whatever, like that. And there's a lot of meat. There's a lot of different things that's connected to this that you can draw from your own personal experience, what we see today in our culture and society, and what we experience as little kids. So let me touch on that part. As little kids, as 9, 10, and 11-year-old, if anyone comes and tell me, unless they were raised in a monastery, they spent the majority of their time with priests and nuns, did not have these kid conversations as kids, especially heading into our teenage years, when our bodies are changing and we're starting to like girls and starting to like boys, and we're hanging out with our friends and we're talking as kids, I don't believe you. And I think that you're a hypocrite, because when you watch this movie, what you see, the first thing I started thinking about was, I had those same type of conversations when I was 11 and 12 years old. Our parents called it being mannish. Okay. And then, now we didn't have social media, but we had the influx of on TV, Cinemax, aka Skinemax, HBO, and everything else like that. And then we didn't see this stuff in social media, but then we saw certain dances and certain movies that didn't really put stuff out there like they did today, and it helped spark our conversation. So for anyone to get appalled by it, I'm just kind of confused. Now, I'm going to say this. I do not agree with the somewhat, I guess you could say, exploitation of 11-year-olds. But my thing is that if you're going to get upset with something like this, then you need to really get upset with what they do to women in totality, in general, because they are being exploited every time you turn on the TV. It doesn't matter if it's a cartoon, a commercial, baby lotion, it doesn't matter. Women are being exploited all across the board. So my thing is that if you get upset with this, you need to be upset with that, because if you can sit up and watch this stuff all day, this is all day, we're being inundated with this stuff all day, then, and you see this and it doesn't bother, and see this and it bothers you, then I have a problem with it. But my thing is, at the end of the day, watch the whole movie to draw your conclusion, and then you have to be like, well, okay, well, okay, I get it. I might not agree with this. I might not agree with that. But this is how it is. This is life. We've all gone through this. And it also, and I know we'll touch on it too, is that it's going to talk about how disconnected as parents sometimes we can be from our children. And the same thing with us. And I don't want to say that, because coming up as kids, I wouldn't say that our parents was disconnected. They were doing parent things. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't so inundated with what they had going on that they forgot about us. We were just a little sneaky. It's no different than what you see in this movie.
That's a lot of information. I think for me, I just don't agree with that scene. And I get that you all saw the movie and, there's a lot more to it than just that scene. I get it. You're right. We all had conversations. We've all had experiences. We all had the curiosity. Just one of the things you talked about, Jackie, was that the culture that she was raised in is different than the culture. I feel personally today that, as Reggie was talking about the indoctrination, of a lot of things. Our culture is just forcing a lot of things on us, which means that you see things that you may not agree with in movies. You see things that you may not agree with in commercials. You hear things in music that you may not agree with, and it's forced down your throat. It's not many places that you can go to where um, you can get away from this. Um, I personally, again, I was just turned off by that scene. But the thing that you mentioned about that small clip, it kind of goes with everything that happens in today's society, where we see videos post and it's just a small clip of it, and we don't get the full story till after the fact. So then everybody jumps to conclusions and start reacting at the beginning of seeing the video without getting the full story. And so I think that, those things are marketing tactics or a way to persuade people to feel a certain way. So when they show that clip, you had what they talk about in California passed the other day, SB 145, which legalizes it doesn't necessarily legalize it, but it takes away the having to register as a sex offender um, for having sex with somebody within 10 years. So a 14-year-old can basically have sex with somebody at the age of 24 and not have to register, if it's consensual, not have to register as a sex offender. This is something that passed in California the other day. And so you have people that are outraged by that, and then they see this video, and now we jump to conclusions. And then you also go back to the kids that were just found in Georgia, and there was other kids found in another state. I can understand why people are getting outraged about the whole situation. But at the same time, I understand you all's points that you have to go and look at the video. And I agree with you 100%, Reggie, that women are exploited 24/7. You go to, when I was young, the videos we used to talk about, late night BET, the things we were exposed to at younger ages, even being young males, the things we were exposed to, and experience. So I get that, why people are outraged, and I'm still on the fence about it. I haven't watched the movie, and I'm probably going to have to, but just so that I'm not being biased or whatever the case. But I think I'm going to have to watch the movie and then formulate my another opinion about it. I just personally think that maybe, and I'm going to ask you all this question: do you think that maybe they could have got the message across with the film without showing that particular scene?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't me okay, I'm on the fence with all of that now. Again, if you look at today's worldview right now, especially with different type of dance groups that's out there, the outfits that they had on when they were doing their final performance is no different than your regular hip hop dance outfits that you would normally see. However, the type of provocative moves that they were doing in the film, by them being 11 years old, I think that's probably where the backlash is coming from. But again, I have to agree with Reggie on this. If you are a person that, that forgets that you once lived and that you grew up, and that there were some things that you did that was against what society might say, or against what your family might say, or against how you was brought up, then I have to stand with Reggie on this one. I call BS on this, because at the end of the day, I feel like this movie is telling a story following a young woman who is trying to explore womanhood, or coming in, not explore womanhood, but coming into her own and trying to, figure out her identity pretty much. And there's one point in the film, where you see, which is towards the end, where she actually has an epiphany, and she realized that once she's on stage and how she's dancing and she's seeing the reaction of the crowd, she kind of starts putting herself in the mindset into reality, like, wow, I am really kind of young. And at the end of the film, it shows her leaving off the stage from dancing with her friends and actually going back home to where her father was getting married, not going to the wedding, but actually going outside and being a kid and jumping rope. So again, I just think that, you can take this small bit piece of the film and say that it's Netflix exploiting young girls, and, have all different type of opinions about it. But until you watch the film to really understand, everything that's going on in it, I don't think that you can be judgmental behind it. And I just feel like, as young girls, we are so disconnected we can be so disconnected at time from our children that we don't really understand the things that they're going through on the inside. Because in this film, she was going through a lot. You know what I'm saying? She was hoping for her family to get back together. So, to me, I feel like she was just really just trying to figure out a way, in a sense, of belonging, because she really didn't get a lot of attention from her mom, and she found a different source outside of the home to try to have a sense of belonging. And that's a story and a narrative for a lot of families in today's society. So again, I think that you really have to watch the film to truly understand exactly what she's trying to portray and what she's trying to say. Do I agree with the clipping? For 11-year-olds? Of course not. However, again, there's more meat to just that clip, in my opinion.
Okay. So, Reg, I think you might have something that you want to add to that.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to say this, because in Hollywood and in TV, from a marketing standpoint, they are taught, and I've taken marketing classes, and some of marketing is that you're taught to what's going to catch the public's eye, what's going to catch the attention of the viewer. Okay. Now, if Star Wars is coming out and all you see is Ben Kenobi walking down the street, are you going to go see that movie? No, that's boring. You understand what I'm saying? If you watch a movie and they're just holding hands and nothing's doing, are you going to go? No, you're not going to see it, because nothing about that attracted your attention to go see it. Now, as far as that clip, could they use another clip? I don't know, because if you look at the rest of the movie, there's nothing really exciting about the movie. So, of course, they took this little clip that may have been in some views of the public eye inappropriate or provocative, and it sparked attention. And exactly, like you said, Ken, or some of them that I've seen already, they saw this clip and it sprouted outrage, or it led you to go watch the movie. So I'm like, well, let me go watch the movie, because I guarantee you, if I just saw them jumping rope, there's no reason why me as a grown man would be wanting to go watch a movie when I'm thinking they're going to be jumping rope. Is this a double Dutch competition or what? So, unfortunately, sex sells. Inappropriate things sell. It doesn't matter how Christian you may be or whatever else like that. I don't care what anybody say. There are still certain things that kind of spark your attention, like, I wonder why, or let me check this out, or let me do this and that. And that's just me. Okay, people might say I'm wrong for listening to certain type of music. I'm a hip hop head all day, but there are other things that probably shouldn't be. But I keep my ear to the street because I got kids. I'm around kids. I need to know what they're talking about, because if my granddaughter come up in here humming something, I'm be like, oh, you don't need to be humming that. You don't need to be singing that, or whatever else like that. But my thing is that I just think that they use what they got to get the attention or the viewers that they need. I don't agree with what they put out there, but I just think that we just have to use wisdom sometimes. And I think that sometimes we have to check things out for ourselves. Because I'm still, as I watch the movie, I'm still trying to figure out what the total outrage is. I mean, I wasn't offended by the clip. And I don't know, and I don't know. Someone might be listening and will listen and be like, "That's because you're desensitized, my brother." I don't know. But me personally, when I saw it, it didn't spark my attention to go watch it. When I saw the clip, I was like, okay. I've been scrolling through Netflix. I'm like, nothing. But when I started to hear people talk about it, I'm like, okay, then what's going on? And I still don't see what the issue is. But I do think that in totality, there is a problem as a whole, as far as our society is concerned, and as far as what's going on behind the scenes. And, you talk about the prop thing that's going on out here in California with the pedophiles and registered offender. And we have to look at the times that we're living in. And we have to look at how a lot of this stuff was ushered into our psyche. And we need to plan accordingly. Now, one problem I will say I might have is that something like this, I don't think that they need to have on Netflix, for the simple fact is that you got young kids who watch Netflix. And if my young daughters or my granddaughter came in here doing what they saw on Netflix, I would be I would be very, very upset. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this is a rated R movie, but I just think that there's some things that just should not be on TV. And you understand what I'm saying? I don't know.
Can I? Well, okay. I want to. I'm sorry. Let me go back to a point that you made though, when you said that you have granddaughters and you keep your ears to the street. Okay, but this story is filtered around 11-year-olds.
Right.
So my question is like, what is the appropriate age to really have conversations with young girls about sexuality, or the things that they're seeing on TV, to truly understand what they are picking up? Because I can be honest with you, and I can tell you, even when we were growing up, and like you said, we were watching BET, and we were looking at things that our parents probably didn't approve of. However, in our mind, we weren't really looking at the underlying message behind what it was we were looking at. We were just, for one, trying to dance. Oh, the beat is hot. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else is doing it. We wasn't listening to the lyrics per se, even though the lyrics probably was something that we shouldn't have been listening to. So again, we have to really ask ourselves, what are we teaching and trying to share with our children from messages like this? Because now that our children have so much exposure to social media, they have so much exposure to technology, there's no way around it. It's not just Netflix. If they're not watching it on Netflix, they're seeing it on TikTok, they're seeing it on Twitter, they're seeing it on Facebook, Snapchat. They're seeing it on, there's so many different outlets that you have where they have access to all of this information. So wouldn't it be us using wisdom to sit down and have a conversation with our kids to say, okay, so tell me, what do you think about this? To really understand where their true mindset is.
So I think that those conversations do have to be had. I think it's based around maturity. You know how mature your child is getting. You also know if you're parenting, and I'm not saying you're not a parent if you don't check on your child, if you trust your child. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're parenting and involved in what the child is your children are watching on internet, watching on, and I know kids are sneaky. You can't get away from that. They know how to navigate the internet and hide what they're doing. I understand all that. But at the same time, if you're really involved and you have that relationship with your kids to where you have to start early. I agree, because things like this are coming out. It's all over the social media. There's certain websites or certain apps that our youngest daughter friends may have that we don't allow her to have. And it's part of this reason alone. Has she been exposed to some of the stuff and seen some of the stuff? Probably has. I wouldn't doubt that, because again, this is what this generation and what we did in our generation is not something new. But at the same time, I think that we as parents, we need to govern a little bit more. And just to kind of go back, Reggie, you were saying something about that. You don't think that things like that should have been on Netflix, because kids are there. I just want to read something as it relates to, because I think we were missing this side of what people are outraged about, as it relates to what they consider as child pornography. People are saying that scene is considered child pornography. And to have that definition, I'm going to read it from the federal definition of child pornography, just to kind of shed a different light and a different perspective on it. So federal law defines child pornography as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor, which means persons less than 18 years old. Federal law prohibits the production, distribution, importation, reception, or possession of any image of child pornography. So with that definition and what people are assuming just by that little small clip and not watching the whole movie, does it shed light on why people are outraged by it?
From that definition? Say, of course, from that definition, when you're looking at a small clipping of just a part of a movie that has more to say than just that clip. Yes.
Reggie, what do you think? I'm just curious to see what you have to say.
Well, let me say this. Back to Jacqueline Wells' original question. I think that's a phenomenal question, because I started having those type of conversations with my daughter at the age of 8, and people thought that I was wrong. Some of my friends, that's too young. But first of all, I saw some things in her, all right, that I felt that I could not wait until she got 13 that I felt like I needed to address. I saw the environment that she was in. I saw her friends, and I knew their parents. So my responsibility as a dad was that I am not going to allow you to fail and to go out and thinking that this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, because you are not to come up in my house 13 years old and pregnant. Okay, so I had, and it was uncomfortable. And as I'm talking about it, we were in the car and we were talking, and I had that conversation with her because I saw something that she had watched. Now, this is late 90s. I saw something that she had watched. I had heard a song she was singing, and I had, when they had friends over their house, I heard some conversation that wasn't inappropriate because they were kids, but I knew that it were leading to adult conversation. So I had that conversation with her at 8 years old. Now, if later on down the line you decide to do something different, because I never wanted anyone to come back and say, well, my dad or my mom, they never told me that. I never knew that. No, I gave you the truth. Now it's up to you to walk in that truth. And if not, that's on you. But you can never say that you didn't know. So based on what I was seeing in the culture and the environment and everything else like that, I had that conversation. So to your question, Kenneth, and what was your question again, Kenneth? I'm sorry. Oh, the definition. And like Jackie said, based on that definition, yeah.
Yes.
But I think they're being hypocritical. I think that they're being very, very hypocritical. Based on that definition alone, that would be like, yeah, I agree. That sounds good. But I think that whoever created that definition, whoever, the government or whatever, they're so hypocritical. They're so hypocritical. Because you created this whole little bitty narrative that's going to get people on your side based on the definition. And there's some other things out there that they don't address that really needs to be addressed.
You preaching now. You preaching now because I don't think this definition applies to anything related to Hollywood or the music industry.
I agree. I agree. There you go.
And this is just my opinion. Like I said, I didn't watch the movie, but based on what I see on TV, my wife and I have conversations all the time. Like, man, really again? We watching shows and they show stuff. I'm like, again, really? Come on now. You fast forward through shows. You really want to watch shows, but there's certain parts and things that you don't agree with that you got to fast forward through it or pause it till it's done and skip past it. Stuff like that. And then people may say, well, you shouldn't be watching the movie anyway. But I don't necessarily agree with that statement because there's a whole lot of messages in everything. In most things, I'm not going to say everything because some stuff is just downright dumb. But there's a lot of messages in everything. And I think that at the end of the day, from what it sounds like about this movie is that, as Jackie, you described, the girl, came from a different culture, tried to fit in another culture. And then at the end of the day, realized that, it wasn't worth fitting in. Let me just go back and be what kids should be doing, right. And that's just kind of the perspective I have from it. But at the same time, I don't think we should be hypocrites because, like, for instance, Reggie, and I'm going to bring it up because can't end the show without talking about it. And I know we got a couple minutes left, but the song called WAP, you know what I'm saying? That right there is a whole nother can. Maybe we should just record another show talking about that. But when you have these types of songs on the radio playing, and then we try to address it with our kids or, hey, you shouldn't listen to this. Hey, you shouldn't listen to that. I mean, I think I find myself in my parents' shoes often. And what I mean by that is trying to govern what my kids do. And at the same time, I want to give them the freedom to make their own choices. But there are just some things that I'm just like, look, this is going too far. So I'm just going to leave that perspective right there and let somebody go ahead and say what they got to say.
I'm not. That's a whole nother show.
I just think that if we're talking about the WAP and everything else, I think that we now have adult minds now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was brought to my attention because I called myself sparking this conversation up, and it got thrown back at me. Well, how can you such and such when in your time this
Right.
song was done, blah 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 blah. And I had to pause for a second and be like, wow. And not only did I listen to it, I glorified in that song and thought that the song was dope. But now, but that also, but you have to go by when I was a child. I spake as a child, you know, and when I became a man, I put away childish things. And you have to look at the culture that we're in right now.
Right.
The WAP song is a song, I think, for another topic and time, because there are so many different negative connotations about that, and also how it's being viewed as some type and form of women empowerment just boggles my mind. But I just want to say, as we near, towards a close, I think that we it just messes with me because, like you said, it doesn't apply to Hollywood and music. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
because that you see that all the time.
Exactly.
And I think that you also
fails.
have to look at, the sex trafficking and everything else like that. I really don't even think that there's really there's stuff being done, but there should be more being done about that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's basically out in the open. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that I don't know. This movie right here has caused a lot of controversy, and again, there's been some other movies out there that I just think that, like, for instance, oh my God, I can't even think of this movie, but me and my wife set up and watched this movie, and the young kid, because when I'm watching movies, I go and find out how old everyone is. The inappropriate things that they were saying and the scenes that they were involved in, I'm just like, first of all, this parent allowed their 12-year-old to be in this type of movie, or a 15-year-old getting fondled. You know what? She's portraying a 15-year-old, but in real life, she's probably about 17 or whatever like that. But you're showing this, portraying that, oh, she was 15. That's okay. And I'm like, well, where is the outrage over that? I'm just like, I don't know. I don't. As a society, I think we're backwards. We got a lot of stuff going on that we don't address. The things that we should address.
They pick and
Well,
choose.
that to your point.
They pick and choose what should be addressed and what shouldn't. And yeah, I just think that my final thoughts on this whole Cuties movie, I would say to the masses, please go out and just watch the film. Don't just take bits and pieces of it and form a judgmental narrative based off of just the clipping of what you see. You really have to go and watch the film, and then, like we were saying earlier in the show, then after you watch the whole film, then come out and give your I don't want to call it judgments, but then come out and see what your perspective is after watching the movie. It wouldn't be based off of how they depicted it from that one clip, because I didn't get that after I watched the film.
Okay, I get that. But what I was saying, Reggie, is that you were talking about the things that are being exploited. I think that we've been indoctrinated so much by movies that they basically just inch things in more and more to where we do become numb to a lot of things, and they depict so much sex trafficking in movies that's been out to where it's something that it doesn't highlight our attention, because we're in that mindset of, okay, well, it's just the normal. It's just the normal, and I think that, as you were talking about with the kids just experimenting more and more, we understand that, these are real things that happen in life, and things that we may have gone through and experienced. And we understand that. But again, in the movie, for it to be displayed and showed in the movie, people are offended because they don't think that this should be shown on TV, or because it exploits young girls, and that scene alone walks that fine line of child pornography. And and again, like you said, we can't be hypocritical, and I agree with you, Jackie. We need to go watch the movie first before you place your judgments or opinions on anything. And I think that we should do that in anything in society. We shouldn't take a 30-second news clip or a 2-minute coverage of a topic without doing research and getting facts. Because just from the little clip I seen, I sent it to you all because I was outraged, and I'm guilty of that, but just giving you all the opportunity. You have to be open-minded and give people the opportunity to explain and elaborate a little bit more on it to get a little different understanding. But I agree with you both. This is something that we definitely need to, just rethink and reevaluate. And Reggie, you hit the nail on the coffin. Um, the human trafficking is a big issue in this country. It happens every day. You could have a neighbor that has kids in there holding kids up in your house and don't even know it, but I think we need to talk about those issues too, as well as the other stuff. And maybe we do need to have another episode about WAP. So we can dive into that a little bit more.
Please. We really need to, because, and here's the reason why I feel we need to, because I really want to talk about why
they think it's empowerment.
It's empowerment. That lets me know. Now, I can see. Now, let me say this. I can see because what Jackie's about to say. I can see why a woman might think it's empowerment from this viewpoint. Okay, as far I get that, but it's a topic for another time. But empowerment.
Let me stop y'all right there before y'all go all the way into it. I don't want to get in any way. We're not gonna get any goodies away right now. We're gonna hold on. You know what? Look, we're gonna stop it right there. So thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, keep your head up.
Keep God first.